of 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutska on the Charlotte Metro, now under federal investigation as President Trump demands accountability for the, quote, evil act.
Madeline Rivera joins us live now from Washington with the latest. Maddie.
Hey guys, yeah, such a tragic story. Irina Zarutska was only 23 years old. She immigrated from Ukraine 3 years ago to escape the war there. Now surveillance video reveals what happened before the attack last month. Here she is seen getting on a light rail in uptown Charlotte, and she sits directly in front of the suspect. Investigators say 4.5 minutes later, that suspect pulls a knife from his pocket, stands up, and stabs Zarutska 3 times. He has been identified as 34-year-old DeCarlos Brown Jr. It does not appear that he and Zarutska knew each other. Records show Brown has a criminal record spanning more than a decade, including convictions for felony larceny and robbery with a dangerous weapon. He was paroled in 2020 and remained under supervision until 2022. Here's President Trump talking about the crime.
There are evil people, and we have to confront that. I just give my love and hope to the family of the young woman who was stabbed this morning or last night in Charlotte by a madman, a lunatic. Just got up and started. It's right on the tape. We're going to get to the end of it. And, you know, when you have horrible killings, you have to take horrible actions.
FBI Director Kash Patel says his agency has been investigating Zarutska's murder since day one. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says his department is also looking into Zarutska's death.
I can't pull money today from their transit system. I actually have to do an investigation. That's what the law requires. We start that investigation tomorrow, and I guarantee all your viewers that if I find what I think I'm going to find, they are not going to have your federal tax dollars going to their public transportation system. Zero, none, nada.
The crime is once again shining a light on the revolving door where local judges don't do enough, some say.
Okay, say it again.
Okay, a little gallows humor there. Thank you, Jerry. It's funny. I mean, I was laughing, and I guess this is a moment that you got to take the laughs that you can. Gallows humor, we call it around here. We're not trying to make light of a bad situation. We're trying to make bad situations good, and it's what we're going to be doing across the country at this show and at this program. Today is Tuesday, September 9th, 2025, and the judge responsible for allowing the Charlotte murderer to roam the streets free will be exposed live on this show. We think we know what actually happened, and we think that we have a way to fix it. Luckily for us, we will have Chairman Jim Jordan on the program to ask him live, along with Jamie Comer of House Oversight into, let's say, judicial corruption. The judicial chairman on the show. Perfect show, ladies and gentlemen, along with Viva Frei, who we will apologize to off the top because we were live yesterday with a bunch of different stuff. We weren't able to get to Viva, and so he's joining us again today, and we're thankful for that. Did Greta get caught blowing up her own boat? Greta's boat blown up in the middle of the Tunisian Sea. Ooh, that was the sound of it. What happens next? Very interesting. Actresses are going to act. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Make sure that your fiscal house is in order. This is something that is very important. They are going to lower rates. That was the top line of the news this morning on my feed, that in fact, they are ready to lower the rates 50 basis points. They're planning, many of the hedge fund managers and bankers and people that talk about these things professionally are planning on lower rates by a whole point from the Fed this time next year. That's what they're planning. And maybe more, maybe less. I don't know. It's not up to me. They obviously hate Donald Trump. But President Trump, of course, is prosecuting some of the board members of the Fed for themselves being incapable of signing mortgages and being criminals. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. It turns out that the person who freed the murderer in Charlotte is herself a criminal, a tax criminal. We're going to get into all of the records today. But the point is this. Make sure your house is in order, okay? Your house needs to be in order. There are going to be financial opportunities. You got to get out of debt. Everybody got into debt. A lot of people, the higher numbers than ever, got into debt during the crippling prices of the Biden administration. American Financing can help you get out. Stop paying those 20% rates on credit card debt and unlock the potential in your home's equity with American Financing. Get out of that high interest debt that is crippling. It has no end, seemingly. It should be illegal, I would argue, and rates should be capped, but whatever. American Financing can help you out. No fees, no obligation, just a 10-minute call today. They're salary-based mortgage consultants. Don't wait. Call American Financing now at 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219, AmericanFinancing.net/Benny. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to begin with President Trump and his commentary yesterday on this. We covered some of it live, but then since the stream yesterday, Donald Trump went berserker mode on Truth Social. Let's pop that up, please, and get rocking and rolling, because we've had a lot of things that have been happening over the last 24 hours. We've learned so very much about why monsters like DeCarlos Brown Jr. are allowed to roam the streets and to steal the lives of this white Ukrainian refugee. The only reason I talk about the race in this circumstance is because there is a horrific trend line. We're going to cover it in just a moment. We covered it yesterday on Steve Bannon's show. It's some reporting that we did that sort of threads the needle down to the very basis of why this happens, the very bedrock of why this is all happening. And you won't believe it, but it's actually the federal government who's to blame here. Obviously, Democrats, communists, the welfare state. But then rising up one level, we're going to look at the judges then. They are also to blame. And then we're going to look at the media. They are also to blame because they refuse to talk about crime like this. They refuse to talk about interracial crime, which in the vast preponderance majority is black against white. That is according to the FBI's own statistics, and the media refuses to cover it. They refuse to focus on it. It's time for us to focus on it and to ask some questions. Why does this happen? Unless you can stare it, unless you can stare evil directly in the face, you will never conquer it. Unless you are a man who can look evil dead in the eye and take it on. And that's what we're going to do on this program. President Trump doing it right here in this Truth Social. I've seen the horrific video of the beautiful young Ukrainian refugee who came to America to escape a vicious war in Ukraine. And she was innocently riding the metro in Charlotte, North Carolina, when she was brutally ambushed by a mentally deranged lunatic. The perpetrator was a well-known career criminal. Wait a second. We have information from the killer's mom that we will give you that will make your blood boil. Get ready. Where she was brutally ambushed by a mentally deranged lunatic, the perpetrator is a well-known career criminal who had been previously arrested and released on cashless bail in January. A total of 14 times. What the hell was he doing riding that train? Walking the streets. Criminals like this need to be locked up. The blood of this innocent woman can literally be seen dripping from the killer's knife, and now her blood is on the hands of the Democrats who refused to put bad people in jail, including former disgraced governor and wannabe Senator Roy Cooper. North Carolina and every state needs law and order, and only Republicans can deliver it. Accordingly, where is the outrage from the mainstream media in this horrible tragedy? Vote for Michael Whatley for the United States Senate. He won't let this happen again. Yeah, this is obviously a great play for the Senate seat in North Carolina. North Carolina has a Republican advantage now of over 100,000 registrations. North Carolina is, by every measure, a Republican superstate. It should have a trifecta with the governorship and with the House and with the Senate. What are the numbers in North Carolina? Can you guys pull that for me? Because what we need here is some major judicial reform. Things that have happened over the past 24 hours have been pretty remarkable. We've learned so much about this killer and what actually happened here. What went down? Why was this killer freed? Well, we focused a little bit on the judge yesterday. We talked about, well, it's not a judge, it's Magistrate Stokes. But I want to start even deeper and jump to a level that I think everyone can agree with, which is your mother, the killer's mom, speaking to local reporters talking about who her son is. He's still alive. We'll see if he gets the death penalty. Death penalty is allowed in North Carolina. Should be a very swift death penalty after a simple trial because it's all caught on camera. Also, why the hell don't we have the full footage? Why don't we have the full footage? I know that I'm bouncing around here a little bit, but I've been thinking about this a lot. You know, we all had to watch in 4K George Floyd overdose, which is exactly what happened. George Floyd just overdosed. He was a habitual drug user and career criminal and a horrible abuser, and he overdosed. The media, because the races were reversed, were able to use that as a shield, as an opportunity, this entire story as an opportunity to try and project what actually happened here. So what was projected on George Floyd was not that he was a fentanyl drug abuser and career criminal, because that is a matter of fact what he was. All of the records demonstrate this, including the autopsy. What they projected on him was that he was an innocent who had the entire weight of the system cast down upon him, and it broke him and he died. That's the message that we were told. That all of our systemic racist systems killed George Floyd. When the absolute opposite is true. The Communist Chinese Party and Mexican drug cartels killed George Floyd because they fed him fentanyl. George Floyd chose to do fentanyl, and the enemies of America provided it. There's your George Floyd story. That's what the evidence says. That's what actually happened. Derek Chauvin, however, is serving the rest of his life, arguably, in prison because he followed a police procedure that was in the police manual to subdue somebody who was overdosing or somebody who was being violent towards police officers, which George Floyd was. There's video. You could see the body camera. You can see the body cams. You can see what's happening. He was resisting arrest. That's a matter of historic fact. Derek Chauvin and a number of his other fellow officers faced grave punishment because of a lynch mob that was launched against them because of the fable that was written about George Floyd. But what we have here, and why I call this the kryptonite story of the left, is because there is no way for them to talk about it because it is actually a George Floyd story. It's just in the reverse of their narratives. There is actually an innocent party here. The Ukrainian victim. She was actually a true and total innocent victim who, as far as I know, had committed no crimes in her life, is simply here seeking refuge. Irina Destruka is her name. She's dead because the system actually did viciously and racistly kill her. Do we have the footage of him saying, I got the white girl, I got the white girl? Do we have that footage? Let's make sure that that's ready to go. Because Harmeet Dillon yesterday on the show, and I didn't have a retort for her, was like, well, we don't know if there's any racial element to this crime. Well, here's your racial element right here. After stabbing the young woman in the neck, slitting her throat, she's dead. DeCarlos Brown Jr. wanders the train, mumbling, I got the white girl, I got the white girl. Here you go. Gotta add captions to this. Producers, gotta add captions to this stuff. Okay. All right, send this into the producers. I want the volume cranked up. Nick, grab this right now. Want the volume cranked up, and I want captions put on this. Klein, next time, let's make sure that we do that before the show. This is something that you have to hear. You have to hear this. Because he admits it. Most criminals do, by the way. The vast majority of criminals, like, end up committing crimes in order to get themselves turned in order to, like, they don't even try and hide it. They'll tell you what it is. I got the white girl, I got the white girl, got the white girl, he says time and time again. Yes, this was a hate crime. Yes, this was a racialized crime. That is a matter of fact. He says it, he admits it. An honest person will put that up because it plays a part in a greater overall social narrative. And something that obviously is a massive and terrifying trend throughout this country. The terrorism of 99% of the country by 1% of the country. But anyway, What we see here is a true George Floyd story. The George Floyd myth that they tried to tell you about, that's actually real here. That's why it's their kryptonite. She is a victim of the failed system. We're going to get into that system. We're going to talk about exactly who and what this judge was, who failed her, how this all happened. We've done the reporting. We've looked at the evidence. How is this happening inside of a Republican-controlled state in North Carolina, where Republicans have a monster advantage, had 100,000 vote advantage? What is happening in this state? It's time, ladies and gentlemen, for us to truly focus here. We have some plans. Perhaps we'll travel to Charlotte and start doing a little reporting of ourselves on the streets. But nonetheless, this story we will not let go of, because this is the true version of the George Floyd story that they wish to tell you. I know I belabored this point, but this young woman was racistly targeted and killed because of her skin color. The killer admits it. I got the white girl. I got the white girl. I got the white girl. She was a victim of the system, a system that allows for murderous lunatics like DeCarlos Brown Jr., that creates them and then allows for them to go out on the street and prey again and again and again on victims like her, like Irana. Okay, let's see it. There you go. There you go. Wow. Seems like an admission here. Why nobody on the train does anything? We call this the Daniel Penny effect. Daniel Penny was facing 15 years in prison. We're trying to save the life of every passenger on the train. The women that were being threatened by Jordan Neely. Jordan Neely was wandering the train, schizophrenic, out of his mind, saying he's going to kill everyone. Demonically possessed. I don't know what it is. The killer's mother seems to know what it is. The killer's mother straight up said, no, you don't understand. My son is sick. He doesn't belong outside roaming the streets. He's sick in the head. He's a schizophrenic. That's what he's been classified as by the doctors, by the clinicians. Why the hell is he out on the street? We're going to answer that question in just a second. Here we go.
His own mother told a TV station that he should have never been allowed to roam the streets, that he was schizophrenic. So in the early charges, he was dismissed by judges. Then he pleaded guilty to 2 charges of felony larceny and breaking and entering. The judge suspended his sentence and put him on probation. Another time, he was released 6 months early after 5 years in prison. Then a judge released him on the same day after the 3rd time he misused 911, according to the affidavits. Based upon a written promise, the judge says, I want a written promise that you will return for your court hearing because of the cashless bail. And the governor there says we need more police. But the question is, he was arrested 14 times by the police. So it sounds like the police did their job. Are the judges and this cashless bail, are they the problems?
I like the way you said that, because you pretend like you don't know the answer. You know the answer.
Yes.
The judges are the problem.
Yes, it's the justice system in North Carolina.
Governor Josh Stein says this: we need more cops on the beat to keep people safe. That's why my budget calls for more funding to hire more well-trained police officers. I call upon the legislature to pass my law enforcement recruitment and retention packages to address vacancies in our state and local agencies so they can stop the horrific crimes and hold violent criminals accountable. A couple of things. These people don't want to be cops, because when you arrest somebody, when you put your life on the line, everything's taped, they're getting out. So they're not making really, they're really saying to themselves, do I want to spin my wheels? Do I want to put my life in danger when you can put a guy like this that need a written promise that he's going to show up in court? He's been arrested 15 times. You mentioned beats his sister, beats women, and obviously he's clearly deranged. And when the Charlotte mayor comes out and says we're not going to arrest our way out of this, and I'm not talking about it out of respect for the family, don't insult us. We do this because it makes you. You don't want to talk about it because it makes you look terrible.
Fox News is close there. They're close. Now you got to look one layer further. and you'll find your answers here, ladies and gentlemen. You'll find out exactly what happened. Let's go ahead and have a look at this judge, shall we? And there are multiple judges that released DeCarlos Brown Jr. It's not just one. There's an entire system that failed Irina Zastruka. But we're going to focus in on his last release because there is something totally and completely criminal about it. Now, I want to begin with just the note from the mother here. Again, that Fox News read. Do we have the actual tweet, please, ALX, from this Joe Bruno, from the local reporter Joe Bruno? Local reporter Joe Bruno says Brown's mom says the court should have never let her son be out in the community, knowing he had mental issues and previous arrests. So his own mother is out here, but please find me the original source. Please find me that original reporter's post. Thank you. So he's out wandering the street. His own mom saying he doesn't belong in the street. He's a dangerous sociopath. So when his own mother is practically testifying against him, it leads the question, like, why the hell would you let him out? And more importantly, as you begin to peel the onion layer back and look at the records in Charlotte, North Carolina, this is just one municipality, one county in Charlotte, North Carolina. You see that there are nearly 1,000 criminals that are currently out on the streets in Charlotte, North Carolina that have over 14 arrests. Wandering the streets today in Charlotte. Pray for your friends. If you have a friend in Charlotte, pray for them. Because there are, and this is most likely exponentially worse in cities like New York or Chicago or LA, there are 1,000 criminals wandering the street right now with over 14 arrests in North Carolina. What the hell is happening? This is a red state. They have a Republican Senate and a Republican House. What's going on here? Ladies and gentlemen, it is pure and total judicial corruption. Judge promises to let career criminal walk free to butcher Ukrainian refugee after his mom said he should be locked up. Who's the judge? Why don't we look into this a little bit? North Carolina judge who released career criminal who went on to stab Ukrainian refugee has been slammed for allowing him to be out on the streets. Magistrate Judge Teresa Stokes, who doesn't even have a law degree and is herself a tax criminal, we're going to get into that in just a second, freed DeCarlos Brown Jr. in January, around 7 months before police said he went on to slaughter Irina Zastruka. Stokes allowed Brown, 34, who is a homeless and has a litany of previous arrests, including armed robbery and assault. And, these are not jaywalking arrests. This is clearly a violent person that is screaming at the court system he's going to be violent again. We said this yesterday. Only one person has been really honest in this scenario, and it's shockingly DeCarlos Brown Jr., who said, I am going to murder someone. I am going to commit more crimes. I'm going to commit crimes until I am locked up like an animal forever or something worse happens to me, right? Gunfight with the cops or whatever, He screamed that at the court system, and what the court system did was give him his freedom. She allowed him to walk free on a written promise that he would return to his next court appearance, in spite of his own public defender saying that he's schizophrenic and dangerous. Brown was arrested on January 19th for misuse of 911 systems after he dialed emergency number while police were conducting a welfare check on him. During the ordeal, Brown was schizophrenic. Police thought that man-made materials were inside of his body controlling his movements. Brown wanted officers to investigate this. Man-made material was left inside of his body. The affidavit reads, officers advised Brown that the issue was a medical issue and that there was nothing that they could do. The response sent Brown into a rage. He called 911. Officers arrested him and charged him with a misdemeanor. Here's a photo of Judge Teresa Stokes. Oh boy, get ready. We're gonna learn a lot about her today. Even Brown's mother said that the court system failed the community by allowing him to roam free despite serious mental health issues, according to Newsweek. She was placed under psychiatric monitor. She said he was placed under psychiatric monitoring for 2 weeks after she secured an involuntary commitment and diagnosed with schizophrenia. The desperate mother said that he became so aggressive that she had to kick him out of her home. Okay, so he's attacking his mother. Got it. Great look. So if you're gonna attack and threaten the life of your own mother, what do you think's gonna happen with some like random Ukrainian refugee? I got the white girl. I got the white girl. That's what the guy says. Van Jones, if you're listening, Van Jones sitting there just doing like the whole, this is just a senseless random act of violence thing last night on CNN. No, it's not. This is targeted, racial, deadly hate crime that happened. Committed by somebody who has been liberated due to Democrat corruption and woke DEI corruption, and we'll prove it here in just a second. Brown's lengthy history of run-ins also include assaulting his sister, leaving her with injuries, and armed robbery. Despite all these cases, Brown being a potential flight risk because he's not set to any address, he's homeless, Stokes released him during a court hearing about the 911 call. A document outlining the condition of his release, seen by the Daily Mail, shows that it was authorized with a written promise to appear at the next court hearing. Got it. Okay, a written promise from a schizophrenic, violent monster who attacks his own mother and sister. The court memo from the Mecklenburg County includes Stokes' signature and one of Brown's many mugshots, including him looking dazed with his eyebrows raised. Social media users have been quick to name and shame the judge, claiming that she should take responsibility for Brown to be set free for his next crime, which ultimately ended in the 23-year-old refugee's life. Florida Representative Randy Fine called for every judge who released Brown to be held accountable, sharing a photograph of Arena alongside Brown. He wrote, "This monster, the monster on the right is who the pro-crime Democrats want sitting next to you and your family in public transportation. Every single judge needs to be held accountable." Well, what does that look like? We know what limp-wrist Republicans holding people accountable looks like. You know, it looks like nothing. Luckily, we'll have Jamie Comer and we'll have Jim Jordan on the show soon, and we'll talk to them about this. Many ex-users expressed shock at that a series of judges, ending with Stokes, simply let him go after a laundry list of arrests. Unbelievable, one person wrote. The Daily Mail contacted Stokes for comment. President Donald Trump blasted the decision for him to be let onto the street. And ladies and gentlemen, we now have some very interesting information about Judge Stokes. Let's go move over here to Laurel Loomer's reporting. Teresa Stokes, the DEI-appointed magistrate judge who isn't even admitted to the North Carolina bar and released to Carlos Brown Jr. before he brutally murdered a Ukrainian refugee, is married to a woman. She's a lesbian. She's not only a lesbian. She and her partner applied for marriage licenses in Michigan. They are a married couple that apparently enjoys working together. In 2021, they were working together at their halfway house fried chicken joint, Wing Heaven, Sports Haven in Lansing, Michigan. They're both directors of the Pinnacle Recovery Group, a nonprofit in Lansing, Michigan. Since the married couple relocated to North Carolina, Teresa Stokes was appointed as a Mecklenburg County magistrate. Mecklenburg, sorry about that. North Carolina. I don't particularly like being in Charlotte whenever I'm there in the airport. It is my least favorite place to connect, and I don't spend much time in Charlotte, but it is what it is. And her wife, Ayanna Ballard, is a healthcare provider affiliated in North Carolina mental health and addiction clinic that specializes in court-ordered evaluations. Well, would you look at that? It's worth mentioning that Charlotte, North Carolina is located in Mecklenburg County within the same jurisdiction as the magistrate wife presides over. The extreme connection deserves further scrutiny. Do they coordinate their respective professions? Perhaps there should be an investigation in the mental health and addiction court evaluations overseen by Teresa Stokes' wife. How convenient that for her that she is married to a magistrate judge with a soft spot for violent criminals and drug addicts who can then push people into the clinic that they directly, and the nonprofits that they directly profit from. Well, that's fascinating. Here you can see the reports, ladies and gentlemen. Always put up just the information. It seems to be a really strange connection. I mean, wait a second. You're sitting there, and ALX, make sure that we have I want all of the documentation on this. So is Judge Teresa Stokes, ALX, this is an important question. Is Judge Teresa Stokes serve on the board of the nonprofit that treats the addictions that are court ordered This is an example why DEI is dangerous to society, says another social media user. DEI allowed Magistrate Judge Teresa Stokes, who released 14 times to Carlos Brown, who never passed the bar exam, to continue habitual offenders and let free. Blood is on the hands of the woman. Why does Charlotte Judge Teresa Ann Stokes claim to also live in Lansing, Michigan? According to Truthfinder, somebody named Teresa Ann Stokes, who graduated and lived in Lansing, has multiple tax liens and bankruptcies filed against her. You can see here the documentation of the tax liens. Michigan State Department of Treasury and Corrections. This is looking very interesting. How is it possible that a person who can send criminals to court-ordered treatment centers can also own their own treatment center? I mean, doesn't this seem like an obvious? Doesn't this seem like an absolute corruption on its face? Let's go ahead and read here. Judge who released Charlotte light rail killer has a history of addiction activism. This from the Washington Examiner. Thank you very much. Judge with past criminal and addiction recovery activism. In the days following the killing, the social media users flooded a Facebook page of Second Chance Services Unlimited, a Charlotte mental health provider, alleging Stokes worked there. The organization responded by saying, "This has nothing to do with us. This behavioral health clinic helping people in the community with substance abuse and mental health issues. Please stop posting this page. We have nothing to do with the law." A representative for Second Chance hung up the phone when asked by the Washington Examiner whether Stokes had worked there since 2023. The group's website also not currently online, and it's unclear whether the page was removed. Stokes' name appears on a now deleted profile listing her as the director of operations and a magistrate. But that listed role could not be confirmed independently. So this just simply requires an enormous amount of new investigation. You have to find this out. This is the single most important. This is all over my timeline. This is the single most important bombshell story that could crack wide open the DEI and corruption fraud. So, okay, I'm a magistrate, meaning I can order things by law. I'm not a real judge, but I can order things to happen by law. If you create a system where you can order by law, where you can order people into your service centers, no matter what your service is, and the state has to pay you because DeCarlos Brown Jr. has no money, his family has no money, then prima facie, that is just bald-faced government corruption. There is no other explanation for it. They're releasing violent criminals, and as we have said, records indicate that there are nearly 1,000 violent criminals on the streets of Charlotte, North Carolina today with over 14 arrests. They're simply releasing violent criminals for their own profit because they run these little nonprofits, or they run these mental health service centers. Let's read here from the Washington Examiner. What is verifiable is that Stokes previously co-founded a separate mental health venture called Pinnacle Recovery Services in 2015, a Michigan-based nonprofit organization that provided housing and recovery services for underserved individuals, according to her LinkedIn account. Previous news reports. In 2021, she helped open Wing Haven Sports Haven, a sober sports bar in Lansing, after losing both her brother and nephew to overdose. Legal experts who spoke with the Washington Examiner said that even absent a verified current ties to Second Chance, Stokes' advocacy background raises serious questions about the appearance of conflicts of interest when ruling on mental health-related cases. Online critics are calling for an investigation into whether Stokes benefited from her jurisprudence, such as releasing Brown with no bond requirement, despite his well-documented criminal history. And here you can see there it is the, thank you, this is the tweet I was looking for. There is the photo and image of her director of operation, Second Chance Services. Well, somebody needs to do an investigation here with force of law. Now, Kash Patel yesterday is out saying, he had a very cryptic tweet out saying, we have been on this. Now, we only learned about this because the video was released and went viral this weekend. This murder happened on August 22nd. Check me on that, ALX. Murder happened on August 22nd. So Kash Patel out with so the feds have known about this hate crime, vicious murder for weeks, for going on now, rounding the corner on a month. And here's Kash Patel up last night saying the FBI is investigating the Charlotte train murder from day one. So they knew about it 3 weeks before we did. 3 weeks before it was, the video really became viral and we knew about it. We understood. Stay tuned. Was it August 22nd? August 22nd. Okay, I want to get my dates right here. Let's read here about Magistrate Judge Teresa Stokes. She now is the reason why they're being so cagey that she's under federal investigation. This is something very important. We need to ask the FBI about this immediately, ALX. We need to ask the FBI spokesperson and press about this. Is Teresa Stokes under investigation? Magistrate Teresa Stokes freed DeCarlos Brown Jr., a 14-time criminal who went on to butcher Irena Zastruka. Stokes also listed as the director of operations as Second Chance Services, a Charlotte-based clinic for mental health and addiction. It's not just a side job, it's a built-in conflict of interest. The court feed violent offenders into programs that people like Stokes help run. Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. By the way, this is something that's happened since the dawn of time. It's like open judicial corruption. Judges are able to rule and able to get kickbacks on the back end. This has happened for a very long time. It's just basic prima facie judicial corruption. It's just dumb. It's like on paper here. It's just unsophisticated, like low IQ judicial corruption. The softer the judge, the fuller the clinic. It creates an incentive to release dangerous criminals back onto the street because their failures become business. When the same judge who decides whether a career criminal stays in prison also profits from the industry of rehabilitation, justice no longer exists. It becomes a racket. Director of Operations. Goodness. Mercy to the guilty is cruelty to the innocent. This is an Adam Smith quote. And that is exactly what's happening. But, well, of course, it's happening because obviously, why do all these things happen? Because people are benefiting from it. Brown remained out of custody even after the public defender raised competency concerns in July. So you have the guy's mother and his own public defender, paid for by the taxpayers, saying, don't release him. Judge Joy Wiggins ordered a forensic evaluation. Brown was not detained, and the evaluation was never completed. Following Zastruka's murder, a different judge denied Brown bond and ordered new competency review. Zach Smith, a senior legal fellow at Heritage Foundation's Meese Center, told a Washington Examiner that based on Brown's criminal history and background, it's clear that she did not adequately take into account the dangers that he was posed to the community. Certainly more consideration should have been given detaining him while legal proceedings played out. It's amazing. Something big has happened, by the way. Something really bad, like something. So the woke mayor of Charlotte, initially she was like, let's have a lot of compassion. Let's have a lot of toxic empathy for the murderer. Important to have toxic empathy for the murderer. And boy, has she ever changed her tune. It does seem like something big has happened here. Do we have her new commentary? While we get it, we're going to go to Stephen Miller, who was on last night ranting about this. Obviously, something that is a topic made for Stephen Miller. He's been telling us that this was going to happen for a long time. Here's Stephen Miller going scorched earth as we get you the new statement from the mayor of Charlotte. It's amazing. She's like, actually, something happened, man. Something the FBI was like, we're gonna put you in she saw the full weight of the FBI investigation. She saw how out of control this is all getting. She saw the potential corruption that she's allowing in her city for violent crime. And she changed her tune quickly. She released this whole thing that's like, well, actually, we do need to look at judicial reform in Charlotte. Do you know how bad things must be for a woke Democrat politician to say that? Maybe she got a call from Stephen Miller. Here's Stephen Miller, ladies and gentlemen.
The Democrat Party, Sean, is terrorizing the American people. Just think about what is happening in our major cities, the bloodbaths every single weekend. One victim after another, one shooting after another, one murder after another. When you have Democrat politicians like Pritzker and Newsom that are freeing illegal alien pedophiles, illegal alien child abductors, illegal alien murderers back into our streets, to kidnap people, to beat them senseless, to stab them and shoot them to death. This is terrorism being waged against the American people. And then you look at that video that chills our very souls out of Charlotte, that beautiful young woman stabbed to death, murdered savagely on a subway, just trying to get home from work, fleeing war, only to run into a Democrat war zone here in our country. That monster, 14 prior arrests in and out. The Democrat policies of catch and release for barbarians and savages is truly an act of terror, Sean, against the American people. It cannot be explained unless you deeply, fundamentally hate America.
Stephen Miller is my spirit animal. I get up in the morning, I shave my head, and I look in the mirror, and I'm like, please allow me to say things like Stephen Miller. It's like, you're right? Yeah, right? Can you imagine how depressing it must be to be a cop and have locked this guy up 14 times? Grab me his mugshots. Grab me his mugshots, then get me, Alex, can you get me just some quotes from this letter? Just some quotes from the letter from the mayor, because I want to talk through it. So here's the letter from the mayor. Charlotte, I reflect on the tragic murder of Irina Zastruka. My heart continues to go out to the family and the community, blah, 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 the senseless loss. Oh, it's so horrific and senseless. It so sounds like if only someone could do something about it. Our police officers and people only, over the past several weeks, our community has worked to understand what we now know is a tragic failure by the courts and magistrates. What? So she's calling out Teresa Stokes. Teresa Stokes is the magistrate. So wait a second. The woke mayor is calling out the magistrates? That's really, truly something. Our police officers arrest people only to have them quickly released, which undermine our ability to protect our community and ensure safety. We need a bipartisan solution to address this repeat offenders in the face of consequences. This woman is not to be lauded. She's doing this obviously because clearly the FBI isn't investigating now. The Republican state legislature, like she could be impeached. She could. This is now, like, again, as we've told you, this is the real George Floyd. This is actual George Floyd. This is an actual racial hate crime and murder, premeditated murder that happened because of this. Here's the mugshots. There you go. This is why it happened. This is the system failure. This is actual systemic racism. Do you understand? This is the systemic racism that you are looking for. The systemic racism that says that we are going to continue to release this man onto the street until he takes out a pocket knife and I got the white girl, he says, as blood is sprayed all over the bus. This is the systemic this is the systemic racism you're looking for. This is not a Jedi mind trick. It's literally right in front of your face. I got the white girl, he says. This is the mayor capitulating and saying, nope, there's no defense. There is no defense. Here she is. When was the last time you saw a woke politician, Mayor V. Lyles? There you go, Mayor V. Lyles, who looks like this, who is, obviously like just running her little like corner of hell inside of an otherwise nice red state. I like North Carolina. I have nothing against North Carolina. When was the last time you saw somebody like this get down on her knees and beg? And she is. She's down on her knees begging. Over the past several weeks, our communities worked hard to understand that this was a tragic failure of our courts and magistrates, and our police officers deserve better. What? We need a bipartisan solution to address repeat offenders who do not face consequences for their actions, and those cannot get treatment for their mental illness and must not be allowed back on our streets. This is a major paradigm shift. I don't care if we had to physically force through social media activism, through like ripping asunder this. I don't care what process we had to go through to get this. This is unbelievable, this statement from a woke Democrat. This is a sea change. Remarkable. Here's what the police have to say in Charlotte. The police have come out against this mayor. This is what's happening. The police nuked the mayor. The Charlotte Fraternal Order of Police eviscerates this mayor for her woke policies. Here we go.
The Democratic North Carolina governor is calling for more police, but the police arrested him 14 times. So didn't police do their job? Should it be up to the judges to be held accountable? Charlotte Mecklenburg FOP, which is a nonprofit representing, it's the union representing the police officers. They wrote on Facebook, maybe if the mayor followed our Facebook page for maybe the past 5 years or so, should see what we've been complaining about this and calling for action. It's been met with crickets. When we are glad the media is not letting this story go. If it's uncomfortable to read, good. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. This poor young girl was killed because of failures in the system designed to protect her. It never should have happened. While we've been calling for change for years now, our leaders finally care.
And let me just put it this way. There's a crazed maniac like this, where you see all these mugshots in every single major city.
More than one.
In your community. More. You're exactly right. And there are DAs that are protecting these people. There are judges that are protecting these people. And it could be you or your family member sitting on a train. And if you try to defend yourself, they'll make you the problem. That's why we're talking about
in
this
Chicago.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk more about crime with our dear next guest, Viva Frei, who's patiently waited 24 straight hours. Come on, show. Who is himself somebody who knows the legal system very well, but also is a father and is somebody who is going to be motivated, just like me, to ensure that this doesn't happen to our children. We're going to talk about some brutal realities and some judicial corruption here. I want to talk before we get to Viva about another type of corruption, digital corruption of your data. Have you ever heard of data brokers? They're the middlemen collecting and selling digital footprints that you leave online, and they can stitch together very detailed profiles about you and include your browser history, online searches, location data. The data broker sells this for profit to people who target you and target you with ads. It's not a big deal, right? Nah? You might be surprised to learn that these same data brokers can sell your information to government agencies and sell them often to third state parties that can attack you, that can steal your data. And I, for one, do not want foreign adversarial governments able to hack my phone or my digital footprint. I have to protect myself with ExpressVPN, and that is exactly how I protect myself. It's the easiest way to make sure that data brokers cannot track anything that you are doing from your device's unique IP address, which also reveals information about your location. So stay secure with ExpressVPN. Your IP address is totally hidden. It makes much more difficult for data brokers to track or monitor you or monetize your activity. ExpressVPN encrypts 100% of your network traffic and what you're doing. We make sure that we are secure in our physical world. I carry with me virtually everywhere I go. That's just the way it works, and I'm proud to live in a state like Florida that encourages that. But I also make sure that you are secure digitally, ladies and gentlemen, with ExpressVPN. So protect yourself today by visiting expressvpn.com/Benny. That's ExpressVPN, EXPRESSVPN.com/Benny. You can get an extra 4 months for free, expressvpn.com/Benny. Somebody who is securing blistering hot takes on our program is the great Viva Frei, who joins us live now. Viva, what up, G? I cannot believe what we're reading right now about Teresa Stokes. And while it seems to be totally and completely credited to the, I want to put this up, the Washington Examiner piece here that has looked through her past, what they're finding here is really alarming. So the allegations are that Teresa Stokes, the judge who liberated the murderer in Charlotte, runs centers and clinics that could potentially profit from court-ordered magistrates sending a bunch of degenerate criminals into rehab. Well, that just stands to reason, doesn't it? That's just like prima facie government conflict of interest corruption. That's how like a lot of this stuff works in the third world and here in our country. The floor is yours. What's your take on this?
It's obscene, and you try not to racialize these stories, or at least you don't operate on the basis that there's a racial motivation component to it. And if you want to steelman it, you say no, it's not racially motivated. It's mental illness on the one hand, which still has a racial component to it. Because you imagine the guy is schizophrenic. I have no doubt believing the guy's schizophrenic. How then he was released from the judicial system, the jails, over a dozen times is wild. But appreciate, even if he's mentally ill and schizophrenic, the degree of MSM brainwashing that goes on to convince schizophrenics that they need to go after Whitey because Whitey is the source of their problems. Like I've been saying it for a while, these are the dog whistles that would-be criminals and the mentally ill here. When New York Times, come out and say it's the patriarchy, it's the white man, and this schizophrenic career criminal who's on the streets because of other financial corruption from this judge, goes out and one day snaps, hears voices in the head and says, it's Whitey's fault, I'm going to stab her in the neck. And then the media doesn't cover it, as if to say, we're going to cover for you when you do it, when you've heard our dog whistles for the last years of brainwashing. We're not going to cover it and therefore cover for you even in the wake of your violent crime. It's obscene. It's obscene.
I don't quite know what happened, but something big is happening. What do you think is going on? I've never seen a 180 like this from the mayor of Charlotte. And then Kash Patel, in a very cryptic post that they wanted you to see, says, yo, we've been on this from day one. Get ready, stay tuned. Like, what do you think is happening now behind the scenes?
Well, it's you always say, like, don't attribute to malice what you can, attribute to incompetence. And whether or not it's, they don't want, I say they, it's not a black judge letting off a black perp so that he can go murder a white person. It's just systemic incompetence, systemic corruption, and the materializing of bad policy coming out of these big blue Democrat cities. The amazing thing is Pritzker. You got Pritzker saying Trump should focus on red states because that's where the crime is. The crime in red states is in blue cities. The crime is in the New Orleans. The crime is in the Chicagos, in the Detroits. In North Carolina, it's in Charlotte, where you have institutionalized corruption, where people seem to fail upwards, including these incompetent judges who want to have a bleeding heart, but it's not their heart that's bleeding. It's not their blood on the streets. It's the citizens, because these judges are protected. The politicians are protected, and they don't have to live with the consequences of their bleeding heart policy. It's what Gad Saad calls suicidal empathy, except I dare say it's homicidal empathy, because the people adopting these policies are not the ones who are generally the victims of it. It's the people riding the subway. And then you got your Zoran Mamdani talking about transit ambassadors. Oh my, if only there were a transit ambassador on that subway, this wouldn't have happened. Armed guards, armed police on these subways until such time as these blue cities enforce law and order. There is no other way about it. I don't support Trump, federalizing law enforcement in these blue cities. But I don't blame him for floating the idea, and let these Democrats suffer the consequences that they so rightly deserve for their failed policy, and the media for their failed coverage, which in fact just not only covers for the criminals, incites and motivates others to do the same, because they've got the backing of media. They won't talk about it when it's something as egregious as a man who happens to be black stabbing a Ukrainian refugee in the neck unprovoked, and then saying, I got that white girl, because he had been brainwashed by the anti-white propaganda in the media for years.
That's exactly what he said, and we've played the video before. Harmy Dillon was on the show yesterday. She says she's not sure there was a racial element to this crime, and I'm not sure anybody had seen that part of the video. But there's clearly a racial element to this crime, because that's what he bragged about when he wandered the train with blood dripping from the knife in his hand. The other question that I have here, Viva, is why don't we have the full video? And I'm not here for like more violence online. I'm not here to like show, I don't think we need to see everything. I think it's terrible for the soul. It's terrible for the spirit. But sometimes you need motivating factors for there to be real change. And I wonder, like, why is it that they edit this video? Why is it that this video can't be released in full? To show truly the American public the evil that we are facing. And frankly, in order to like fight and defeat evil, you have to be able to look it dead in the eye.
I don't know. I can't imagine being Irina's family, and like that video is now out there for the internet to gawk at, to rubberneck at. I've seen enough of the most awful videos that exist on the internet that, they're newsworthy, obviously, but I don't know there's anything redeeming about seeing someone bleed out from being stabbed in the neck. I mean, people have seen these videos. They're horrendous and they're horrific. What they teach you, or what you learn from watching more of the graphic violence that comes with someone being stabbed in the jugular and bleeding out in a matter of 30 seconds, all of the blood within their body. I appreciate people's demanding to see it because it is so bloody horrific that it might motivate even the most bleeding heart of liberals to say enough is enough already.
That's right.
But flip side, I mean, I can understand, the family of this victim to have this brought. I mean, I couldn't imagine seeing a video of a loved one being violently attacked and murdered. It would be traumatizing to the victims yet again. But flip side, I mean, I do understand the argument for all the videos that have been released. It seems like the not releasing the entirety of it is, so that people's passions and people's rages don't get inflamed, possibly to the degree that they should get inflamed to.
That you need that would initiate actual societal change. And I think we're at that point now. I think we're at the point of extreme fatigue where people are saying enough. And I think that something is going to happen. I think something big is going to happen in Charlotte. This is the kryptonite for the left. There is no defense of this. It is utterly indefensible. And
they will say it's fine. The guy is a violent criminal, a career criminal with schizophrenia, and had a delusional thought in his mind that he had to get the white girl. I mean, I appreciate people are going to say it's not racism, it's mental illness. But like when you look back on projects like MK Ultra, where they were trying to brainwash people deliberately to do things beyond their own willingness, there is a de facto brainwashing that goes on with years and years of smearing in the media of the patriarchy of
exactly
white folk,
right. Yep.
where this guy, he might be, criminally incompetent. He might be schizophrenic, had no total detachment from reality. There was a terrible story up in Canada a while back. It traumatized me from when it happened. Somebody was on a Greyhound bus, and the guy happened to be Asian, Chinese, and stabbed a sleeping passenger to death, decapitated him, cut his ears and his tongue out. Everyone fled the bus, and this guy spent like an hour trying to make sure the body parts didn't reassemble to what, clearly out of his gourd, criminally incompetent. That being said, this man was a violent career criminal. And the fact that he was a known schizophrenic and that they did nothing with it, but, release him because the judge wants to look good on the bench, release him. He'll go to a clinic that I might have a financial interest in. And you have the media day in and day out over the course of years, demonizing white people as the oppressors of all. Well, mentally ill people are going to act on their mental illness when they think it's righteous in their mentally ill mind because they've gotten the political permission slip to do it.
That's right. Well, lucky for us, you've queued up the great Jim Jordan and James Comer, who will be on this program momentarily quite nicely. We're now going to be asking about judicial reform. Thank you, Viva. Viva is obviously the man that you should tune into on Rumble for his incredible, groundbreaking show about issues like this. Will you be live again today, Viva?
Daily, 3 o'clock on Rumble. And, I'm not out to take hot takes. I'm out just to be, have meaningful and on-point analysis and not to jump on certain bandwagons. But now it's abundantly clear. The man was mentally ill, but it was racially motivated in his mentally ill mind. And that blame lies squarely on a media that has promoted this hatred for decades. Let's say, not exaggerate, years, if not decades, and then goes out of their way to cover for these criminals when, holy cows, the chickens have come home to roost, and now they have to face the consequences of their brainwashing over the course of years.
750,000 people follow Viva. You should be one of them. Godspeed, sir.
Thank you very much.
And gentlemen, without further ado, the great Jim Jordan, the chairman of the Judiciary in the House of Representatives. Congressman, thank you so much for being on the program. Obviously, judicial reform is something on the top minds of everybody today as we learn more about why so many career offenders are released onto the street to terrorize American citizens. And we look at it as a 1% versus a 99% problem. We put up polling yesterday that shows that 99% of the country want safer cities. This is the most lopsided issue we've seen in American history in all the polling we've done on the show in years. Yeah. And so my question to you is, what can Republicans in Congress do to ensure that these people that are screaming at the court systems, at the judiciary, please, I am not fit for civilized society, that they actually are locked up and stop terrorizing us?
Well, I think, first of all, you got to back up and start and set the framework here and understand the framework that the Democrats have established. So I always say, when you defund the police, you shouldn't be surprised when you get more crime. When you end cash bail, you shouldn't be surprised that you get more crime. And when you elect these soft on crime prosecutors, you shouldn't be surprised when you get more crime. And so that's the environment that was created. And now we're seeing all these horrific things happen. And you're seeing a president, particularly starting here in D.C., which certainly under the Constitution, he's allowed to do. It's a unique situation, the federal city, the capital city of our country, starting here in D.C. and bringing in more law enforcement. And guess what, Benny? It's working. What, in 4 weeks, the carjackings are down like 80-some%. Every major crime is down significantly because you have more cops on the street that are protecting neighborhoods, protecting people, and doing what law enforcement does. So I think that's the framework. And then you add to it, what else can we do? So tomorrow in oversight, and I know Chairman Comer's coming on as well, but tomorrow in oversight, we're passing legislation that actually gives the White House, the administration, greater authority to deal with the situation here in D.C. And I think that's step one that lays sort of a groundwork and a foundation for what we may need to do, what the president may need to do in other cities. And you look at the pushback that you're getting in those other cities, but I think you can just point to D.C. Look what's happened in D.C. in 4 weeks. And we're going to pass legislation that gives the president greater authority to impact who's the attorney general in the capital city. Greater authority to say you pass some stupid law. Congress has not just a few days, but a couple months to rescind something that the D.C. Local government does. So those kind of things are on the docket tomorrow for the Oversight Committee. I think all that's helpful. And then we've done some things relative to federal judges that we think make sense as well.
Hey, Chairman. So Benny's having some technical issues. I'm producer ALX. I'm just going to hop on and fill in until he's back.
I've lost him.
Do you got me?
Hello?
Hey, do you got me?
Yeah, I lost you there. I don't I don't know if I did that whole thing with.
Do you got me now?
Yeah, I got you now.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so we just had some technical issues at the studio, so Benny just hopped off.
Okay.
I'm executive producer, hopping in.
Okay.
And all right, so I wanted to ask basically about so 14 prior arrests and what's being done to look at judicial activism and the fact that judges can allow these criminals to be roaming on the streets.
Yeah.
Randy Fine that has legislation. Could you elaborate on maybe that?
Well, yeah, I think the main thing we can do is draw attention to what's going on in these areas with the soft on crime prosecutors who don't try to really prosecute the guys who do these bad things, and then frankly the system, the judges who let them out. So we're looking at all those issues. I think the country rightly understands you got someone who's a repeat offender. There maybe should be some mandatory way that person is not just released to the public, particularly this individual in Charlotte, who, coupled with the 12, 14 prior convictions and things he had done, also had mental illness. I think that's just a recipe for terrible things to happen, and obviously that's exactly what took place on that bus in Charlotte. So yeah, we're looking at all that as we move forward.
Do you think there's any avenue for any federal charges that you might be able to see in this
Again,
case?
I have to see. I wasn't aware of some of the statements that this guy made, this terrible, evil individual made after he had done the terrible act. I just heard those earlier. So there may be some hate crime element that the Justice Department could look at. We'll have to see, but that'll be up to the Justice Department how they move forward.
Yeah, and then there was some reporting by the Washington Examiner that the judicial magistrate might have a conflict of interest because she sat on the board and was an employee at a mental health clinic. Do you think that there's any potential for investigations into why that might have influenced her decision?
No, good question. I did not know that fact. If that is actually true, then I do think they should investigate that. If there's some conflict of interest here, and you got a guy with 14 convictions, mental illness, and he's not kept in prison, but instead put in this halfway house where he still has access to the public, as obviously this individual did. that could be a problem. If there's a financial stake there too. So I think that's certainly warrants an examination.
Also, we got Benny back.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
I apologize.
No
we
problem.
have horrific power outages sometimes in Tampa and
Wow.
thunderstorms that roll through, and I apologize. We lost power in the studio for just in one moment, and
no problem.
that resets everything. So
Okay.
live streaming, we're live.
Yeah.
Okay, so I apologize that we haven't tuned into the last few minutes of the conversation, but thank you, ALX, for jumping in. Have we covered what happens next with some of these activist judges? What is going, how do we prevent payola? How do we prevent the judicial corruption here?
Yeah, I think that's just an investigation has to take place. If there's some kind of conflict of interest, we got to look at that. I didn't know that potential fact there, or that situation. So I think that's something that should be investigated. From our standpoint, we're concerned about we want the independence of the judicial branch, but when you start having judges who think that they're the end all be all, particularly on some even a broader context. I know we talked about this a while back, but we've passed legislation through our committee through the House when it comes to these federal district judges who issue an injunction, and the injunction is designed to go after some policy that the president has implemented via executive order or what have you. But they issue an injunction, and it has nationwide implications, or nationwide, applies nationwide. What we've said in our legislation is no, it should apply to the parties in that case, in that respective jurisdiction only. So you don't have one of the, I think it's 670 of these federal district judges who can make policy, who think they're the president, for goodness sake. So that's one of the things we have focused on in the Judiciary Committee with these judges. The other thing is just doing oversight and highlighting like the situation that took place here, although that's, I'm sure, a local judge, state judge, but also, around the country, highlight decisions made by the judiciary and say, wait a minute, you got to think about this. And I would just say to the judicial branch that, we defended them when the Democrats wanted to pack the court. And the top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler, wanted to pack the court. And we said, no, that doesn't make sense. When the Democrats wanted to impose some kind of ethics on the court, going after Justice Thomas and other justices, Justice Alito, we said, no, the court should handle it. It's an independent, separate, and equal branch of government. They should handle that. But at the same time, when you got judges issuing crazy decisions that impact, that go against the guy we all elected to be president of the United States, I think the judiciary should step in. It's like, look, we defended you. Now let's make sure you're actually doing and policing and monitoring how judges around the country are operating. So that's a message I think is important for the Judiciary Committee to send to the judicial branch as well.
So 14 different violent arrests here for DeCarlos Brown Jr. in Charlotte, North Carolina. Some of them were assaults against his own sister and mother. This is somebody who was screaming at the court system that I am not fit for civilized society. Can Congress pass any law that reins in the potential for somebody like that to be released again and again and again? Can there be mandatory minimums? Can there be some type of effect that a Judiciary Committee could investigate on that? Will you be investigating what happens here? What happened here in North Carolina?
We can definitely look at that at the the type of sentencing that should happen in situations like you described, like with this individual. I think that makes sense. I think that's just good common sense. Again, I think the common sense approach is the right way to go. I take DC. The other night, we got in on Sunday for this week's work here in Congress, and my wife and I went out to dinner, and you see the National Guard. And I tell you what, Benny, you felt safe. We walked to a restaurant. We walked several blocks back towards the Capitol after dark. You felt safe because there's just more law enforcement presence out there. I mean, go figure. You have more law enforcement around, you got safer communities, you got safer streets. So that's just good common sense. And what you suggest is just a good common sense way to look at this. Are there things that we can do that are common sense, that are good for safety, that don't violate anyone's rights, and are going to keep neighborhoods and families in a safer situation? So I think all that should be on the table, and it certainly will be as we move forward.
So you will be investigating what happened here and how DeCarlos Brown Jr. was able to be let out. I want to put up the mugshots here again and again and again.
Yeah, I think our committee staff will look into that and find out exactly. We want to get all, because I just learned some new facts here with you. I didn't know about the statements this evil guy made. I didn't know that. That there may be something there that the Justice Department will say, oh, this is a civil rights kind of hate crime issue. You never know. So I didn't know that. We got some additional facts. Just listen to the show here.
This is what our job is here, and our production team is so excellent they can even fill in power outage situations.
There you go.
Yeah, here pray for no hurricanes this year, please, down in Tampa, Florida. Sure. Final question for you is obviously on some of the work that you've been doing concerning the judicial activism against President Trump. We continue to see that on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. Will we ever see any end to it? What is the work on your committee? What is the work on your committee currently engaging in? What was the last one that they weren't able to let Guatemalan children that were smuggled here go back to their parents in Guatemala?
Yeah. Well, the left's going to be the left. The left is always going to have the resources to challenge good common sense things that the president's doing in court. Long term, the answer is for President Trump to appoint more judges, every opening he gets, to put in good members of the judiciary who are going to follow the Constitution, follow the law, not be political in that. So it's not a quick solution, but it's the right solution long term. So, and that's the Senate, that's the president working together to appoint the right kind of people to these positions. What we can do is what we always do: highlight where do the oversight, highlight where some of these decisions are ridiculous. Again, I go back to the injunction issue. That one was an obvious one. And by the way, that was one where even Justice Kagan on our highest court said needed to change just a few years ago. So you can't have one district judge in Timbuktu, California saying that, oh, I'm going to issue a ruling that applies nationwide. And then because that just encourages forum shopping, finding that one left-wing political judge out there that you can find and getting those decisions. So I think there's things we should look at there. And frankly, I think we should maybe look at, the longer this happens, the more I'm leaning this direction, is we should look at some kind of expedited review where you get these decisions from a judge and it gets to the top court, to our higher courts, in a much quicker, much faster time frame. I think that makes sense too. When you're thinking about President Trump's the guy we elected, people put him in the office, he's the commander in chief, he's the president, he's the head of the executive branch. You can't have just different judges around the country stymieing everything he does. And if they do, there should be a quick review so you get a final decision.
Yes. I mean, it is on its own level absolute tyranny. We just want to put up the data here, Klein. I know that we had our little power outage, but we have the data here with every member of Congress, we're bringing this up. And Mr. Chairman, I'm sure you already know this. This is the single most winning issue for all Republicans. Just in closing, I have never seen a more lopsided poll that 99% of Americans want safer cities, want judicial reform for safer cities so that we no longer allow these terrorists onto our street to maim and kill and slaughter. It is a 99-1 issue. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah. The other thing I think is important on that issue is because there's this debate. Well, can the president go into other cities? Certainly, D.C. he can. It's a federal city. It's the capital city. But other cities, can he do that? And there's a constitutional debate. I like what the vice president said when he said, well, you would think these mayors and these governors would invite the president to bring in the National Guard to clean up the crime and help with the safety of the citizens in there. But that's probably not going to happen with all the talk you hear from these left-wing mayors. Although I will point out, Mayor Bowser has changed her tune. But the other thing to remember is most of these places are sanctuary cities, and they've already pushed back against legitimate federal law enforcement activities. So I think there may be some constitutional basis looking at that sanctuary city concept that warrants the president saying, you know what, you didn't invite us, but I do think we have a reason to be there, particularly when it is involving federal issues, federal law enforcement issues, or federal facilities. I think that's important. Yeah, I mean, sanctuary cities. How is that even legal? For the life of me, I still can't figure that one out. Seems like a very dangerous precedent. Like, we just refuse to follow the laws. Remember the judge war over that like 150 years ago. I thought we fought a war over that. Well, remember the judge in Milwaukee, right? She's letting the bad guy out the back door while the good guys are coming in the front door to arrest the bad guy. It was like, what are you? And right, she got prosecuted, and rightly so, for that action. Well, more of that, and thank you Mr. Chairman, here with nearly, I'm just going to round up, 7 million subscribers on X is the great Chairman Jim Jordan. Someday we hope to be as big of an influencer as you, Mr. Chairman. And
you got a lot of influence. I appreciate what you do, Vinny. Thanks.
I'm going to call for a binding injunction against the Ohio State football team.
Yeah, they're
in the Big Ten. Yeah,
they're pretty good. They're pretty good.
God bless you, Mr. Chairman.
All right,
Thank you.
Too. Take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a Salt That Lib for your viewing pleasure today. It just happened seconds ago. Tom Homan on MSNBC, of all places, did a absolute torch throwdown against Mika Brzezinski and absolutely mic'd her. And it was a straight up yeeting. Ladies and gentlemen, here's our Salt That Lib for the day. Let's go.
I see on the show this morning you have Governor Healy talking about ICE doing enforcement operations at a church. False. Didn't happen.
They were parked there. They did not do an operation there. She said they were parked in a public space legally.
But to say that and to push that out there puts fear in the immigrant community. So let me tell you what's happening.
That puts fear in the community. To park the ICE agent's vehicle
they're on a
near
public
a church.
Street.
They are
on a public street.
She said
they're on a public street
sir.
waiting to respond to a criminal alien release pulled aside the road. Let me tell you, in the last couple of days, what's happened in Boston. They arrested Victor Gomez Perez, a 33-year-old criminal alien from Guatemala, with charges of aggravated rape, assault and battery with dangerous weapon, indecent assault and battery on a victim 14 years or younger. They arrested Kaylee Espinosa, a 33-year-old criminal alien from Colombia, with charges of aggravated assault on a pregnant victim. They arrested Joshua Gonzalez, a 23-year-old criminal alien from Dominican Republic, with charges for trafficking heroin, morphine, opium, resisting police, disorderly conduct, and drug distribution. They also arrested Samuel Armando Barrero, a 20-year-old criminal illegal alien from Guatemala, pending charges for assault and battery on a child. So Mayor Wu and Governor Healy, they ought to be calling ICE and thanking them for making their streets safer, for protecting their communities and taking these people off the street. They've turned a blind eye to this. They're sanctuary cities. Sanctuaries, cities and sanctuary states are sanctuaries for criminals. Give ICE access to the jail to arrest a bad guy in the jail rather than have to go in the community to find them. Because when you go in the community and find them, it puts ICE officers at greater risk. It puts the community at greater risk. It puts the alien at greater risk because anything can happen on a street arrest. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to prioritize public safety threats. But when you got governors and mayors who are releasing these public safety threats every day into the community, that causes the crime rate, and we've seen some terrible incidents in the last few days where innocent victims are murdered. This past year, I've seen innocent Americans raped and murdered by people who are not supposed to be here. So rather than going back and forth and say, well, ICE has got a car parked near a church, that is ridiculous. You're out there looking for people like this, exactly what they're doing.
Well, I would argue that actually that the ICE vehicle parked outside a Spanish mass is a frightening sight, given what has happened in this country. I also, with respect, sir, thank you for the information that you have shared on this show, but we would appreciate all of the information. All of it. All of the data that you say you have.
I've done this show several times. Every time on your show, I speak with integrity, I speak with honesty, and I speak with facts. The bottom line is, because of all this false narrative, and you using the term disappearing people,
well,
is
that's
disgusting.
What's happened. That happened to the group that was sent to El Salvador.
U.S. citizens get arrested every day. U.S. citizens get arrested by police every day. Are they being disappeared? No, their laws are being enforced. They're being arrested. They're being put in detention because they committed a criminal offense.
Not like what you're doing.
Not even close. We're enforcing the law and arresting people here in violation of law that are public safety threats. That's not disappearing people. That's enforcing the laws of this country and making this country safer.
Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate all the salt for our Salt That Lib, somebody who has made libs very salty in his distinguished career. And ongoing is the great chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, who joins us live now. Mr. Chairman, thank you for being back on the program. I want to begin with a Biden auto pen. I know that there's a lot that everybody is talking about here, but you have some real bombshell testimony and findings as you investigate this Biden auto pen scandal, and I want to give you the floor to give us an update.
Well, hopefully everyone's kept up with the emails that have surfaced in the last 2 weeks, the emails from, first of all, the Justice Department, the Biden Justice Department, that was concerned about the excessive use of the auto pen on legal documents. And then you have the emails from the Justice Department asking specifically Biden officials, did the president know about the pardons that were signed with the auto pen? Because we didn't. And the process is you're supposed to communicate with the Justice Department before you issue pardons. And also the process is the only person that has the ability to pardon in the world is the president. So those emails have surfaced in the last 2 weeks. We've been bringing people in for depositions and interviews for almost 6 weeks. And the testimony from the ones who have testified, now some of them have pled the fifth to avoid self-incrimination, but many have answered questions. And the questions that they answered with respect to the process that was used for the auto pen varies differently than what the emails would suggest. So there's inconsistencies from the Biden officials that we have interviewed versus the emails that we've gotten about the process from the Justice Department. So I think that what's clear now, Benny, is that President Biden was not involved in the decision-making process with the pardons. Now, what we're trying to find out is also with respect to the executive orders, what role, if any, did Joe Biden play in the use of the auto pen on the executive orders? There's no evidence that Joe Biden met with officials, reviewed documents, or even ordered people to use that auto pen. So this is important because at the end of the day, what does justice look like? What does accountability look like at the end of this investigation? I think this raises serious legal questions as to whether or not these pardons and executive orders, and we're talking about thousands of pardons and dozens of executive orders, whether or not they are valid because A, Joe Biden wasn't aware of what was going on, and B, an auto pen was used in lieu of the president's signature.
With this investigation, do you believe that it will eventually land at the Supreme Court and there'll be a question as to what a presidential pardon actually is?
There's no question. There's no question that at the end of the day, this will be at the Supreme Court. There's no question that at the end of this investigation, our evidence will be, our final report will be key evidence for the Supreme Court. Because look, I personally don't believe that these pardons and these executive orders, especially in the last 3 months during the lame duck time of the Biden presidency, are valid or legal because there's no evidence that suggests Joe Biden knew what was going on. You're really not supposed to use an auto pen for a legal document. You know, there's always going to be instances where president's out of town or whatever, and you have to use an auto pen. But at the end of the day, 75% of the time that auto pen was used, Joe Biden was reportedly in the White House. Why not just put the document in front of his desk and let him sign it? Just one signature. We're not talking about having to sign 30 signatures. But if you look at with respect to the executive orders and the pardons, the bulk of the pardons, he didn't sit down with the press and talk about it. He didn't say, I just issued an executive order because of this, this, or this. I just pardoned Dr. Fauci and my entire family because of this, this, or this. We just saw it. There was just a press release from the White House that said the president pardoned or the president signed this executive order. I mean, that's not how the process is supposed to work. I don't think any Democrat in Washington will want to argue that's how the process is going to work. So what we found is, again, there's no evidence, and we've given people opportunity after opportunity. We spent hours and hours questioning these Biden officials to give us an opportunity to say, yes, Joe Biden, he took this document down and said, yeah, I've met with all these people and I want them pardoned, and here, use that auto pen to sign it. There's no evidence thus far that's emerged. But we have 3 more people to interview, including Jean-Pierre on Friday.
What about Kamala Harris? Will we be calling her in?
Yeah, I would love for, and I've said this publicly, I would love for the vice president to answer some questions. I'm sure she's aware of our investigation. I'm sure she's seen reports that the Merrick Garland administration had serious concerns about how things were operating. There's even a report that suggested she was the one approving the pardon process, which, if that's true, that's not legal either. The vice president doesn't have the authority to pardon. Nowhere does it say the vice president can issue pardons, only the president. So we would love for her to come in. The problem, if we subpoena her, you're talking about 4 or 5 or 6 months before she'll, before the courts will rule whether or not she has to come in. If I were Kamala Harris, I'd want to come in, and I'll say this again on your show. She has an open invitation to come in and explain her role and Joe Biden's role in the use of the auto pen and how exactly they determined who to pardon and how the executive orders were compiled and who discussed them before the auto pen signed them. She has an open invitation to do that. I would love to hear from her, but it's very difficult to bring in a former president or vice president to a congressional committee. It's not happened. If it were easy, the Democrats would have had Trump in, we would already had Biden in on some of this stuff.
Nobody in Congress is more adept at sniffing out corruption than you. You've been able to expose it ad nauseum, actually, throughout the Biden family, the payola and pay for play. And I wanted to bring your attention to the Charlotte murder that everybody is talking about, and specifically focusing on these magistrate judges. Some of them seem to be having their hand caught in the cookie jar of the rehabilitation of career criminals and the profiting of the release of career criminals into rehabilitation centers, right? So instead of sending the criminal to jail where they belong, where they can't do any more harm, send them to a place where the state will pay you for profit. What I want to do is put up this Washington Examiner article here that sort of goes through this specific judge who released the criminal into her past and her background. And she has this long background in addiction recovery activism where she's on the board or working with all of these nonprofits. It seems like a basic conflict of interest. Obviously, these nonprofits and these addiction recovery centers get state orders. The state has to pay for this seems like an obvious, she takes a salary. That's like an obvious conflict of interest. Now you can see the evidence right here on the screen. Since you're so good at this, and since you're able to spot it from a mile away, your take on this scenario, and do you think that this merits a congressional investigation?
We've gotten a lot of reports from many states about the addiction recovery centers and abuses and wrongdoings, especially with respect to billing Medicaid. That came up a little bit in the big beautiful bill. Remember, we tried to make some reforms in Medicaid to prevent waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement of Medicaid funds because the Medicaid budget is skyrocketing. And the difference in Medicare and Medicare, you and I and everyone who works, we pay a Medicare tax. We pay into Medicare, and when we turn 65, we will receive Medicare. That is an entitlement. But Medicaid is not an entitlement. Nobody pays into Medicaid, and it's supposed to be a temporary safety net program. But the Democrats have tried to put everybody on Medicaid, which is free health care. And a lot of these addiction recovery centers, especially when you're dealing with criminals, Medicaid programs are the ones that get the bill. And it's very expensive. I mean, it's very expensive to the American taxpayer. We found instances where politicians were allegedly on the payrolls and boards and being consultants and paying retainers for if they were attorneys. So I think that there's a huge problem here. It's not something that we formally started. I think this would be a better investigation for a committee like the Energy and Commerce Committee that has more Medicaid experts, because again, this is a huge expense to Medicaid. And I support Medicaid. Medicaid's supposed to be for disabled people, poor children, poor females who are pregnant, elderly people who are in the nursing home who can't afford Medicare supplement. That's what Medicaid is supposed to be for. But the Democrats, especially Democrat governors like we've had in Kentucky, they've expanded it to the point to where over a third of the population of some of these states are on Medicaid, and that's not sustainable. And if you really break the Medicaid budget down, there's a significant amount going into these addiction recovery centers.
So you're saying that where there's smoke, there's fire, and that this may be the beginnings of us understanding why so many violent criminals are released on the street. It's not because of compassion or even because of wokeness. It's because of pure graft and corruption and profit.
And I've had some judges that have expressed concern in different states about the billing practices of some of these recovery centers. Now, I support addiction recovery centers. We've got an addiction outbreak in America. I would argue that Joe Biden's 4 years as president, allowing fentanyl to cross the border freely, only contributed to that drug epidemic we have in America. So we need addiction recovery centers. But I don't think anyone's ever really put their budget through a microscope. And the fact that this is one of the fastest growing expenses in the entire Medicaid budget, and a lot of them are former criminals, like what you mentioned there, that get assigned into these addiction recovery centers, because most of the inmates in jails are in there because of drugs. That's the case in all 50 states. The majority of prisoners are in prison because of some type of drug offense. So theoretically, it was cheaper to put them in addiction recovery centers than have them incarcerated, but I don't think that's the case now. And I think that's something that Congress should look into. I don't know that my committee has enough of the Medicaid expertise to be able to dissect that. I think the Energy and Commerce Committee would. I'm going to suggest that to them.
Really quickly here on judicial reform, what would be the there's this old clip that keeps rattling around in the back of my head since you brought up drug charges, of Joe Biden bragging about his crack bill. And a total irony, and nobody knows Hunter Biden better than you, right? And your committee and working with him. But, the fate loves irony outcome is obviously that Joe Biden's son got horribly addicted to crack. And that is the way that it goes. But Joe Biden bragging about mandatory minimums placed on judges for crack offenses. And he did so on the Senate floor, and he did so very proudly. And he held up, he even brought props with him. He was so proud of forcing judges to not allow crack fiends back out onto the streets. Well, I mean, I find this is from the early 90s, but I find a moment here, Mr. Comer, Mr. Chairman, that I say, well, I kind of agree with Joe Biden on that. And what is the capacity for Congress to dictate to these judges that they are not going to allow these career criminals and fiends back out into the population to assault again and to reoffend? Again, data shows again and again and again that not only is this a 99-1 issue, as we have right here, 99-1, but also it shows that if you were to take the career criminal element off the streets, that you would reduce crime by something like 80 to 90%. Since it is the same people committing the crimes over and over and over and over again.
I agree. And this has just become a problem in the last 6 or 7 years. And this is a result, I believe, of excessive criminal justice reform. When criminal justice reform first came out, I was a supporter of that because I felt like there were people that were arrested and put in jail for marijuana possession. And then there were some that had marijuana possession, like the Biden, like they were from prominent families and they would get their kids out of it. So I felt like there was some type of discriminatory aspect of people who were in prison. They were overwhelmingly minority and all that for marijuana possession. And I felt like we needed criminal justice reform. But these activists, as liberals normally do, and when I was for criminal justice reform in Kentucky, Rand Paul was as well. But what's happened is they continue to push and they continue to want more and demand more. And they got into, no bail and no, you can't incarcerate anyone if they're under 25. That's what the law is in Washington, D.C. And that's a joke. And so you've got cities that have been so lax and passed such excessive criminal justice reforms that they know the young people aren't going to face any consequences. So criminals are encouraging young people to commit crimes. Before President Trump sent the National Guard into Washington, D.C., you could look out the window in any of these apartments in any part of town and see kids, young males running around at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. They were breaking things. They were spraying graffiti. They were stealing. They were causing all sorts of mischief. That's the same case in Louisville, Kentucky, in many of the cities around the United States, because you've got these judges that they campaigned on, giving people a second chance, and just these liberal talking points. And what's happened is criminals continue to commit crimes. Now, there are always going to be instances of criminals that get reformed, that find God and get off drugs, and those are great. But we've got too many instances of people committing crimes, and criminals encouraging young people specifically, especially here in Washington, D.C., to commit crimes because, hey, if you're under 25, you're not going to go to prison.
So, I mean, I want to first off pre-endorse you for running for governor of Kentucky. I don't know if you're ever going to do that, but that'd be great. We'd love to see that.
Thank you.
I want to. These things need to change. Obviously, it's kind of shocking to the country that this kind of stuff is allowed in states like North Carolina, which is a firmly Republican state, has 100,000 Republican voter advantage in the state, and that this kind of stuff is allowed. This kind of wokeness and these kind of policies, restorative justice allowed in the South. It's something that I think obviously confuses many.
And you know why, Benny? You know why you mentioned North Carolina and Kentucky? It's states that elect Democrat governors.
Yes.
When you get a Democrat governor, a Democrat mayor, you're going to have a spike in crime. It's just because of their ideology. They may, their hearts may be in the right place and wanting to give people second, third, fourth, fifth chances. But at the end of the day, if you don't hold criminals accountable for committing crimes, if you don't make the laws tough to where that criminal's thinking, you know what, if I steal this car and I get caught, I'm going to be in prison for 10 years or whatever, then they're going to commit crimes. You have to have tough on crime laws, and you have to hold criminals accountable. And there're just a lot of Democrats, whether they're in southern states or whether in their big blue states and big blue cities, they just are soft on crime. And that's why we've got a scenario where Donald Trump has to send in the National Guard to prove that you can control crime, but you got to get serious about it.
Yeah. Democrats getting away from crime is a very interesting question. And you've been asking that question, possibly crossing the line here, Mr. Chairman, on the Clintons. The thing you mustn't ever ask about is what the Clintons had to do with Jeffrey Epstein. You are the only member of Congress or public official, as far as I know, in history that has actually asked that question this side of President Trump. Now, there was a press conference at Congress, outside of Congress, with some of the Epstein victims. And one of them straight up said, like, listen, I went on the Lolita Express with Bill Clinton. It ruined my life. It was terrible. And what happened there, I can't believe it was allowed, she says. And I'm paraphrasing, but this is what she says. This is what, this is a credentialed victim here of Jeffrey Epstein. Yet there were no follow-ups about that, which blew my mind. I mean, truly, like utterly blew my mind. Now, time and time again, every one of them, from Ghislaine Maxwell on down, say they never saw Donald Trump do anything wrong, or they, never met Trump. But here's one standing there before the media of the world saying, I was on the plane with Clinton. And she says it. There's even photographic evidence to prove this. And not a single follow-up question. Will you be asking follow-up questions if Bill Clinton is before your committee? I know you've subpoenaed him and Hillary.
We've subpoenaed him, and his name was mentioned in that press conference they had on the steps of the Capitol. But then I had a private meeting, and I invited the Democrats and Republicans on the House Oversight Committee to attend a private 2.5-hour meeting. In fact, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, sat through the entire meeting. Wow. And Trump's name never came up one time, but Clinton's did. And, so some of the questions that I would have for President Clinton, that's why I subpoenaed him, is, were you aware when you were president that Epstein was under investigation? Were you aware that there had been allegations made about Epstein and Maxwell while you were president? When did you learn about Epstein and Maxwell? Because we know that Maxwell attended Chelsea Clinton's wedding. So we know that, obviously there was a close relationship there. When did the president learn? Were you aware, Mr. President, of any instances where the federal government was spying on people using Epstein Island? I don't know the answers to any of these questions, but we're leading this investigation, and we're trying to get answers. But, at the end of the day, the purpose of the investigation is to get answers for the American people, and to provide justice to some of the victims on Epstein Island. But the Democrats, they've got one purpose and one purpose only, and that's to try to, dig up dirt on Donald Trump, which Maxwell has said that she never saw Trump do anything inappropriately, that Trump was never on Epstein Island. None of the girls that spoke to us privately or out in that public thing the next day mentioned Trump's name. So I think it's pretty safe to say that there's no liability for Donald Trump on this thing. But yet the Democrats are trying to create a false narrative. They want this to be the next Russiagate scandal or whatever, and it's just not going to happen. And my investigation is going to be about, trying to get answers as to, why did the government fail if over what we learned, people started reporting Jeffrey Epstein in 1996. That was when Bill Clinton was president, if I remember correctly. And yet, he wasn't arrested until Donald Trump was president.
Correct. He had all of his federal charges dropped in 2006 and through, and that was the George W. Bush administration. Yeah. So Clinton's name came up. That's fascinating. Inside of that closed door meeting. Under what context?
Well, it wasn't anything. It's just that they had seen. I think the Democrats were asking, "Did you ever see Donald Trump?" And they're like, "No," but no. What they said, I believe, was that Maxwell mentioned her close relationship with Bill Clinton. They never said anything about Donald Trump. They just said that they didn't say they saw him on the island or anything like that. They just said that Maxwell, who the women were really upset with, of course, Epstein's dead, and I think the women were concerned that Maxwell is going to get a pardon or something like that. And that was the context of the conversation. She doesn't deserve a pardon, and there were questions about Maxwell, and she said that they said she often referred to her close relationship with Bill Clinton. So she didn't. There was no allegations that Bill Clinton did anything wrong. But at the end of the day, Maxwell and Epstein were huge socialites for 2 decades. So they crossed paths with a lot of prominent people, and that doesn't mean that any of the prominent people did anything wrong. And I think that's what Trump's tried to say, and the media's taken it out of perspective, out of context. When Trump says that this whole thing's a hoax, what he's talking about, it's a hoax that he had anything wrong to do with it. That's what I think the president means by it. So I haven't seen anything, and I've read, a lot about this. I haven't seen anything that would suggest that there's any liability for President Trump or President Clinton thus far. But, it's funny that the only ones the women have named is Clinton. So, and then Maxwell specifically, when asked, said that Trump had no liability. So this isn't about Trump. The Democrats and the media are trying to make it about Trump. This is about getting answers to the American people. And this is about, providing justice to the victims. And I think we've already seen the Democrats don't care about the victims. The Democrats just have one thing on their mind, and that's Donald Trump. And they want to, desperately try to create some kind of false narrative about Donald Trump, like they did with Russia and COVID and everything else.
Obligatory question, because I have to ask, because it was all a buzz last week with Nancy Mace and then Mike Johnson saying Trump was an FBI informant. Did that come up in your meeting? And where does that come from? Is that just
I haven't seen that. There's nothing I've read that would suggest that. There may be more documents out there that we haven't obtained yet, but there's nothing that I've seen that would suggest that. Now, that doesn't mean he wasn't. I haven't seen anything, and and my staff has read tens of thousands of documents, and they haven't picked up on that.
Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate your committee releasing those documents. Here is the website if you wish to see what actual transparency looks like. Oversight Committee releases records provided by Epstein Estate. Some very curious items in there. Some stuff has been surfacing in my feed, more paintings, more pictures, more strange stuff going on. And for the first time in our lifetimes, it seems like we're actually getting, some insight into what was going on there. And we appreciate your work on that, Mr. Chairman. Everybody follow Jamie Comer. He's right here on X. He's got 250,000+ followers and subscribers, and you got to be one of them. The most honest man in Congress.
I'm not on that Jim Jordan level. I've got to see how you got so many more Twitter followers.
Oh, you got to do Hannity for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, you're on your way. You're on your way. God bless you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we've done some investigation. We want to apologize. This has been such a long time since this has happened. It is the hurricane season here in Tampa. It annoys us till kingdom come. We have a provider, internet service provider called Frontier here, and all of their service crashed. So they had like a complete and total outage. And we have backups here, but if the ISP like completely crashes, then our studio goes down. And it's obnoxious. It's enraging. Huge shout out to ALX. Monster shout out to our boy. Things seem to be stabilizing, but we apologize for any interruption in our programming. We seek the absolute best for you. We are hardwired and locked in. But if the ISP actually goes down, we're toast. I mean, right? That's the water plant. We have all the pipes and everything like that, and the faucets and everything ready. But if the water plant doesn't flow water, we are stuck. And so we did our best to like rebuild quickly, and here we are. So we apologize for that outage. I'm sure it came across as quite rude to our guest, but again, the great ALX hopping on and doing incredible work from his Cybertruck. We hear ALX with the ALX. You just got to do it from inside the Cybertruck from now on. That's what you got to do. All right, and maybe we should be on Starlink for the whole show. Maybe that's the problem. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, scorching hot takes, hot and toasty today inside of the studio, but not as toasty as my bond charge infrared sauna blanket. Ladies and gentlemen, when I come home from days like today, it is, well, stressful. We don't like crashing the show. We hate it. It makes us very, very upset. But ladies and gentlemen, if you want to ensure that you have a euphoric and chill evening, the infrared sauna blanket or face mask can do that from my friends at Bond Charge. This is how you detoxify. It's how you ease stress and unwind. It's an infrared sauna blanket that comes out when my kids go to bed. That's around 7 p.m. And it works by using infrared light. Heats the body directly rather than the air around you like a traditional sauna. But you get the same benefits, lower the heat. That infrared heat means you can release endorphins, leaving you feeling euphoric after every single session. It's easy to set up, and it heats up rapidly. You get the highest temperatures compared to other brands. Make sure that you are ready to revitalize after a long and stressful day at work. Everybody's got their stress. The sauna blanket from Bond Charge, ladies and gentlemen. So Bond Charge ships worldwide. All their products are HSA and FSA eligible for pre-tax savings up to 40%, plus free shipping on every single sauna blanket, up to 12-month warranty. Go to bondcharge.com/Benny and use the coupon code Benny for 15%. BONCHARGE.com/Benny and use the coupon code Benny to save 15%. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure or prevent any disease or condition. Okay. Let's see. How is the stability, team? How's the stability? Right? Fine? Okay. All right. Fine. Goodness gracious. We have something funny that happened since we talked about Epstein a moment ago. We might as well just put this up. Allegedly, the Wall Street Journal has produced the lewd Donald Trump birthday card. Oh, yes. Oh, the Donald Trump birthday card that he wrote to Jeffrey Epstein. And just a reminder that the President Trump birthday card to Jeffrey Epstein included President Trump sitting on a typewriter in the moonlight, weeping into his inkwell and his quill pen, writing a poem. Do we have the poem? Please get me the poem that Donald Trump wrote to Jeffrey Epstein, along with President Trump's own drawing. He drew pictures for Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, got it. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is what they released. Many people are saying that this signature doesn't match President Trump's signature. The whole thing seems insane to me. Can you drop me the poem? I want to do a live reading, a dramatic reading of what the poem Donald Trump allegedly wrote. You know, Donald Trump, the guy who says they don't know what the F they're doing, right? We have the clip of that. They don't know what the F they're doing. You know, that Donald Trump who calls Kim Jong-un fat and Rocket Man. This is allegedly Donald Trump writing the poem. Again, the team will grab it. We'll read it to you. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't sound like President Trump at all. Many are saying that the signature doesn't match, including Caroline Leavitt. You can see some of the examples of President Trump's signatures throughout the year. I mean, throughout the years, obviously, President Trump's signatures are famous. They're literally famous. Here's a good example here. The fake and real signatures. The White House hitting back hard against this. Let's read Caroline Leavitt's takedown of this. Caroline Leavitt saying, the latest piece published by the Wall Street Journal proves the entire birthday card story is false. As I have said all along, it's very clear President Trump did not draw this picture and he did not sign it. President Trump's legal team will continue to aggressively pursue litigation. Furthermore, the reporter who wrote this hatchet job reached out for comment the exact same minute he published the story, giving us no time to respond. This is fake news perpetuated by Democrat Epstein hoax, says Caroline Leavitt, spokesperson for the president. Many people online are saying, I mean, listen, I'm not a graphologist, okay? So whatever. I'm just saying that it doesn't look like Trump's signature. There are a bunch of people that are like trying to grab like specific examples and bend things. But the thing that, like the signature aside, and I need the poem, guys. The signature aside, it's in the original Wall Street Journal piece. So please grab that. It was in the production yesterday. The signature aside, it's the like this goofy poem. Now here's what this may be part of. Okay, thank you. Here's what this may be part of. Epstein's entire operation was about influence, and would it really be that crazy for Jeffrey Epstein to like forge that Donald Trump, this really famous guy, like wrote him this birthday letter and wrote this birthday card to show people? So he brings over all these people, investors, and all these shady figures from all over the world. And you can see like something that Donald Trump wrote him personally for his birthday. I mean, all this. First off, what 50-year-old guy needs like a birthday poem written to him on a typewriter with like a hand drawing? Like, what kind of a man is that? What kind of 50-year-old needs that? These are like creepy, weird, strange validation vectors. But more importantly, does this really sound like Donald Trump? Voiceover. This is what is allegedly in President Trump's. Put up the actual drawing, please, and I will read this. This is what allegedly Donald Trump, the guy who talks like this.
Two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Okay. So that same guy allegedly wrote this. Voiceover. There must be more to life than having everything. Yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is, nor shall I, since I also know what it is. We have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Yes, we do, come to think of it. Enigmas never age, have you noticed that? As a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time that I spaketh with you. Donald, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be a wonderful secret. Donald Trump is the most on-camera, terminally online, terminally on video individual on planet Earth. Have you ever heard him speak like this? There are a lot of people saying that the signature doesn't match at all. I think that we'll leave it to the professionals on that. I think that the signatures, as far as I can tell, don't match. But more importantly, the entire thing is absurdist. Could it be a forgery? Could it be fake? Could it be completely fake? Yes. Yeah, totally. Could it be fake in order to be planted? We think he works for the CIA, says one of the photos from the release here. Look at this. And this is one of the photos that James Comer released from his committee with a photo of Jeffrey Epstein and some a hand-drawn inscription talking about him meeting a CIA agent or an asset. We don't know what the context of this photo is. Do we, ALX? But he says, this is the boyfriend of blank, where we think that he works for the CIA. So is this like Jeffrey Epstein getting bumped by the CIA? Goodness, I don't know. I know there's a lot of hoaxes. This guy would totally benefit, obviously, from a hoax. We didn't mention in the top line that we want to cover the Greta hoax, and so we wanted to do this just very, very quickly. There was a drone that allegedly dropped a bomb on Greta Thunberg's newest Gaza flotilla. This was all of the rage last night. Here's the footage of that happening. But now this happened in Tunisia. Now the Tunisian authorities are saying that this may well be another hoax, that they never, they don't have any evidence of a drone in the area. There are clips of what looks like potentially a misfired flare that the boat shot out. Again, like, you're dumb. I don't want anyone to get hurt here, but you're dumb. You're like trying to sail into a war zone, and you're just like a bunch of dirty LARPing communists that don't have any discernible skills. You're not like sailors. You're dumb. You're you mentally incapable communists. You're not bricklayers or masons or farmers or anybody who could actually help Gaza. You're just doing this for publicity. And what many people are saying is that this video shows a potentially misfired flare that ignited something on the boat. Tunisian National Guard says that there was no drone detected near the ship at all, even though the LARPers, who are trying to play, victims of Gaza from their yacht provided to them by billionaires, decided to live stream the whole thing. Which, this is the most damning thing as far as I'm concerned, is that, like, if your life is under threat and your boat's on fire, why would you live stream it? Your first instinct is to live stream it and not put out the fire? Are you stupid? I mean, I guess you're a filthy communist, but this is the like major questions that I think that social media is rightly asking about Greta. Make sure that you don't end up like Greta. Greta is sitting there working, like dumping diesel into the ocean, working for billionaires, working for left-wing billionaires, trying to, I guess, there you go. Yeah, right. So what is that exactly? Like, are bombs like lit on fire as they're falling? I mean, it sure as heck looks like a flare that falls down to the boat and hits it and then ignites something. And that's what the authorities have said. But all the rest of them are claiming, probably for publicity's sake, that it was the Israelis. I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't want you to be as desperate for attention and pathetic as Greta, who's obviously proven herself to be a complete and total fraud. That's why I want you to invest and to use the Allio Capital app. The Allio Capital app is how I invest. It is a AI-powered app that allows for my investment to work deep in money markets that are clearly driven by the news cycle, both politically, socially, and economically. The AI moves on a micro and a macro perspective, the investments, rebalances, and allows for the shifts in inflation, interest rates, global risk to be reflected correctly in my portfolio, and is designed for my portfolio to adapt in real time to the news around us. And that is what I do every single day. So it just helps me lock in, man. Allio is designed for hands-off or hands-on investors. I happen to be very hands-off. Macro investing for people who want to understand the big picture. Download their app today in the App Store on Apple or in the Google Play Store. You can text my name, Benny, to 511-511. That's ALLIO, capital. Text Benny to 511-511. Download the Allio app today. Benny to 511-511 today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, plenty of risk on this program. I've had a belly full of it. We do have some big things happening today. We're going to have to talk internally and make sure that we have stable internet and that everything is good here before we go live. There is going to be a Caroline Leavitt press briefing We're clearly going to be live for that if we can. We're going to arbitrage these things and go and get sort of like under the hood and fix the gears here in the studio. Either way, we intend on being live for that. President Trump will also have a big announcement at 4 o'clock. We're waiting to figure out what that is. And so we may well be live more throughout the day to bring you breaking news. But right now, we will bring you our verse of the day, which is the most important news that we give you. Be on guard, be alert, and do not be on guard, be alert. You do not know when that time will come. Mark 13:33. Applies in the news that we're talking about in Charlotte. There is evil in the world. There always has been, and there always will be. So you should always have your head on a swivel, and you should always be alert. And it also applies to the horrific and catastrophic internet outage that just happened in our studio, where Killer Klein was cool, calm, and collected, and so was ALX. And so I'm very proud of our team here. Ladies and gentlemen, be alert right now. And make sure that you know that when the time comes, your Lord and Savior's got you. All right? And that is Christ Jesus, our Lord. In the end, we win. That's your boy Benny. See ya.
Say it again.
Truth gon' be faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies. Watch the truth cascade with the warrior's heart. This man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies. Watch the truth cascade with the warrior's heart. This man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.